Some days, one simple line from practice can tell you more than a giant headline. When a new fullback says he has already clicked with Drake Maye, and that Josh McDaniels sees that position as something bigger than just running through bodies, I feel one thing right away. This offense is trying to find its identity again, not just cover up problems. And today, we also have a real protection battle, a tricky conversation around a veteran receiver, and maybe a much bigger swing coming on the market. Hit that like button and ride with me, because this rebuild is starting to feel real. And that first sign comes from a position a lot of people overlook because it does not always show up in highlight reels. Fullback. Reggie Gilliam came over from Buffalo after 6 seasons around tough, physical football, signed a 3-year, $12 million deal, and already sounds like a guy who understands what it means to walk into the engine room of this offense. His job is to feel the running backs, how they cut, how they explode, how they wait for a block, how they shift their weight. And when he talks about Travion Henderson, the word that jumps out is speed. When he talks about Ramondre Stevenson, what jumps out is power, presence, and that running style where every yard feels personal. But the part that really gets me is not only what he said about the running backs, it is what Gilliam said about Drake Maye. He said they hit it off immediately, from the very first workout on the field, stretching together, talking, and then meeting over the last couple of days after practice to go through schemes. That sounds like an offense trying to build real chemistry. Not just a playbook sitting on a tablet, a young quarterback pulling in details, a veteran fullback learning the language, guys getting closer before the season starts pressing everybody. And then Josh McDaniels steps into the picture. When Gilliam says it is nice to see McDaniels value the position as more than just running your head into a wall, I stop right there. Because good Patriots football has always had a love for specific roles being executed at a high level. A fullback does not have to be a star to change a drive. He can sell direction, protect Maye when the defense is not expecting it, open a tiny crease for Ramondre to turn into punishment, or leak into the flat when everybody is bracing for contact. That is the feeling I want to see from this offense. Not begging for magic, confidence built through details. Henderson can bring the burst, Stevenson can bring the weight. Gilliam can become that physical, smart connector between protection, the run game, and the short passing game. And Maye, if he starts getting that kind of support around him, no longer looks like a kid being asked to solve every problem alone. He starts looking like the leader of a real structure. For fans who have lived through broken offenses, that gives you a different kind of hope. Not empty hype, small work, post-practice conversations, a role being respected. And a feeling that Foxborough is trying to give this offense its competitive soul back. But offensive identity only matters if the quarterback can actually stand in the pocket. It disappears fast if Drake Maye spends Sunday after Sunday feeling pressure crash in before the read even develops. That is why taking Caleb Lomu in the first round cannot be treated like a luxury, overkill, or some sign of confusion. To me, it is the Patriots finally accepting a hard truth. A good offensive line is not built on hope. It is built with players fighting for jobs, real depth, and enough talent to make veterans uncomfortable. David Andrews hit that exact nerve when he said Lomu can push Will Campbell in a positive way. And coming from Andrews, that means something. He lived that competitive culture from the inside. He knows too much comfort can soften a locker room. When he remembered that if he did not have a good training camp, they could have simply handed the job to Ted Karras. He was explaining old-school Foxborough without needing to dress it up. The best player plays. Draft status does not remove accountability, and protecting the quarterback cannot depend on reputation. Will Campbell was taken 4th overall in 2025, started from day one, and showed real value before the knee injury threw off his rhythm. And emotionally, that matters because nobody here has to root against Campbell to like the Lomu pick. The best case scenario for the Patriots is Campbell feeling that pressure and responding like a high-level starter. But if Lomu, who played left tackle at Utah and allowed 0 sacks in 2025, comes into camp kicking the door down, New England has to trust what happens on the field, not what is written on the resume. On the other side, Morgan Moses is entering the season at 35 years old. Full respect to the veteran, but the NFL charges you for age whether you are ready or not. So Lomu can also be that premium swing tackle, the first guy called if somebody goes down, if performance slips, or if the schedule starts chewing up the roster. And after an offensive line that allowed 47 sacks in the regular season, then 21 more in the playoffs, including 6 in that ugly Super Bowl loss to Seattle, nobody should be complaining about more protection. Come on, Foxborough, we have watched too many quarterbacks pay the price for weak planning. The beauty of this battle is that it changes the tone in the room. Campbell is not being thrown away. Moses is not being disrespected. Lomu is not being crowned before he has played a major NFL snap. What you have is healthy pressure. And that kind of pressure separates a serious offense from a patched-together one. If the Patriots want Maye to develop without carrying the scars of constant hits, the tackle battle needs to be fierce. Not loud for headlines. Fierce in practice, in the details, in the reps, and in the pride of protecting the most important player in this entire project. And once the protection starts to look more serious, the next question becomes obvious. Who is Drake Maye throwing to when the play has to be won through the air? The Stefon Diggs situation is the kind of thing that hits fans hard because there is no clean answer. The Patriots released him earlier this offseason, and he was recently found not guilty of the allegations brought by his live-in personal chef. Those allegations do not seem to have been the main reason he was released, but they may have been part of the wider picture. The loudest factor is the money. A cap hit north of $26 million for a 32-year-old receiver, even after a strong season where he led the team in receiving. I understand why some fans look at this and feel that pull. Because Diggs produced. He was not just a big name with nothing behind it. He gave you numbers, presence, experience, and on a lot of Sundays he looked like one of the few fully functioning adults in an offense still trying to discover itself. So when a player like that leaves, and then you start wondering if he could come back cheaper, the reaction is human. If the price changes, why not have the conversation again? But that conversation has to move through pride, role, and roster reality. Elliott Wolf already said this offseason that he was not closing the door on Diggs, and that leaves a small emotional crack open for the fan base. But a return would only make sense if Diggs accepted a very different role than last season. The Patriots signed Romeo Doubs to a 4-year deal, and the expectation around a possible A.J. Brown arrival is still hanging over Foxborough. In that version of the offense, Diggs would not return as the clear owner of the passing game. He would be at best an important piece in a new hierarchy, and that is where the tension lives. Diggs just had a 1,000-yard season. A player like that usually wants targets, a featured role, financial respect, and a chance to prove he is still more than a supporting piece. Maybe he still looks at New England with respect. Maybe there are no hard feelings. But respect does not erase ambition. And if the Patriots are trying to build something sustainable around Maye, they cannot pay for memories or shape a roster around ego. My emotional read is this: I would not close my heart to Diggs, but I would not make his return an obsession either. If the market cools down, if the deal becomes team-friendly, if the role is clearly understood, and if the locker room sees the value, then the conversation has life. But if it turns back into a story about volume, salary, and expectations, New England has to keep moving. Patriots fans, I want to know where you stand on this. Does a cheaper Diggs still fire you up? Or should that chapter stay in the past? And that is exactly why the last story opens a bolder door. Almost an uncomfortable one, but a necessary one. Because if the Patriots are already looking at the possibility of using a first-round pick to chase a receiver, then Mark Bertrand's question on Zolak and Bertrand lands for a reason. Why stop at the first strong name that appears? If a first-rounder is on the table, should New England be calling around the league and checking the price on the very best receivers in football? The idea comes from the roster build itself. The Patriots used this year's first-round pick on a right tackle, a position that feels more urgent for the future than for this exact moment. For a lot of people, that matches the read that next year's first-round pick could turn into ammunition for a ready-made wide receiver. Adam Schefter reinforced that idea when talking about the A.J. Brown path, and then Bertrand pushed the debate into a more aggressive place. If you are already paying big, why not aim even higher? I like A.J. Brown for this offense, I really do. He brings strength, intimidation, physicality, and immediate respect from a defense. Drake Maye would step into the huddle knowing he has a target who does not ask permission to win through contact. But the question is fair. Bertrand brought up Justin Jefferson as the type of name you at least check on, even if that conversation is extremely difficult. And the discussion also brings Nico Collins into the picture. Younger than Brown, cheaper in that comparison, and coming off his third straight 1,000-yard season. When you put those names on the same table, the conversation stops being just A.J. Brown, yes or no, and becomes, what is the biggest transformation the Patriots can buy with a first-round pick? This is where fans need to feel the shift in posture. For years, New England felt like it operated as if any major investment in an offensive weapon was too risky. Now, with Maye at the center of the project, maybe the bigger danger is the opposite. being too careful and letting the quarterback grow without a star who speeds everything up. I am not saying throw a pick into the wind. I am saying serious teams test the ceiling of the market before they press the button. If Brown is the best possible path, go all in. If Jefferson is just a distant dream, at least you try to understand the door. If Collins has even a real crack open, that crack deserves a phone call, persistence, and cold calculation. Patriots War Room. If that first-round pick really is available, what do you want? The safer power move with A.J. Brown? The ultimate dream with Justin Jefferson? Or the younger swing with Nico Collins? Because this is the kind of decision that defines not only an offseason, but the level of ambition the Patriots are willing to put around Drake Maye. At the end of the day, what hits me about these four stories is the same feeling. The Patriots are not just chasing names. They are chasing support. Gilliam is about chemistry and role. Lomu is about competition to protect Maye. Diggs is that emotional temptation to reopen a familiar door, but only with clear limits. And the Brown, Jefferson, or Collins debate shows New England may be ready to think big again. That matters because this is not just a roster. It is trust. It is the future. It is a quarterback finally being surrounded by grown-up decisions. If you want to follow every step of this rebuild with me, subscribe to the channel, because Foxborough is starting to beat again.